Hold on to your shopping carts, everyone. What you're about to hear will make you rethink your next trip to the grocery store. America's food supply chains are unraveling right before our eyes, and the signs are growing more alarming by the day. Egg prices have skyrocketed by almost 6% in just 1 month, but it doesn't stop there. After a wave of new trade tariffs hit earlier this month, chaos erupted as panicked shoppers cleared shelves, grabbing up everything from canned vegetables to ketchup in a frenzy. Freight delays are piling up, farmers are battling brutal weather, and store shelves, they're starting to look emptier than anyone expected. This isn't just another bump in the road. This is a perfect storm of inflation, disasters, and supply breakdowns, and it's hammering the very staples we've all taken for granted. The everyday foods you rely on are vanishing faster than anyone anticipated. Stay with us, because we're counting down 10 essential grocery items that could disappear completely by May 2025. The clock is ticking, and each of these items is becoming harder to find with every passing day. Buckle up, because what's coming next will leave you reeling. 1. Tomato products, canned tomatoes, sauces, and ketchup. If you love pizza, spaghetti, or that perfect squirt of ketchup on your fries, brace yourself. We need to talk about tomatoes because they're in serious trouble. The juicy red foundation of so many of our favorite foods is inching toward crisis mode, and it's not just a passing problem. Tomatoes are falling victim to a brutal combination of extreme weather, relentless drought, and collapsing supply chains. By 2025, shelves may look shockingly empty where your favorite tomato products once stood. California's Central Valley, dubbed America's Tomato Basket, produces an astonishing 95% of tomatoes used in canned goods across the U.S. But for 3 straight years, this farming powerhouse has been hit by catastrophe after catastrophe. First, an epic drought from 2020 onward forced farmers to make an impossible choice: pay sky-high prices for water or abandon their fields entirely. By 2022, the state delivered 10% fewer tomatoes than expected, and farmers simply couldn't keep their crops hydrated enough to meet the nation's demand. Then came 2023, bringing chaos no one was prepared for. An unprecedented heat wave scorched tomato blossoms in the middle of the growing season, destroying future harvests. And just when farmers thought it couldn't get worse, record-setting rains early in the year flooded fields across the region. Planting schedules were delayed and crops once again fell short. The consequences have been staggering. Processors responsible for turning fresh tomatoes into the paste used in ketchup, pasta sauce, and more have been draining their emergency reserves for 3 years now. Those reserves? They're nearly gone. Industry leaders like Heinz are scrambling to source tomatoes from other regions. But global options are shrinking fast. European tomato growers from Spain and Italy face nearly identical issues, with drought leaving their own crops dwindling. Shoppers are already noticing the cracks: salsa vanishing from shelves, favorite pasta sauces becoming harder and harder to find, prices soaring. By the end of last year, costs for tomato-based products had jumped up to 25% with no sign of slowing down. Ketchup itself is now at risk of disappearing. Experts warn this is just the beginning. Tomatoes are highly vulnerable to the extreme weather amplified by climate change, and the global supply chain can't keep up. If you think you can just buy cheaper alternatives, think again. By May 2025, we could be waving goodbye to ketchup, marinara, and other tomato products altogether. 2. Poultry, chicken, and turkey. Brace yourself, because America's favorite protein is on the chopping block, and the story behind it is a chilling one. Chicken dinners, juicy drumsticks, and even Thanksgiving turkeys might soon become a thing of the past. The poultry industry is under siege, and it's being hit from every direction. First, there's the worst avian flu outbreak in U.S. history, an unstoppable disaster that's been wreaking havoc since 2022. Over 100 million birds have been lost so far, wiping out entire flocks of turkeys, chickens, and more. Turkeys have been hit especially hard, with 14.2 million birds wiped out by 2024. By the end of last year, U.S. turkey production plummeted to its lowest level in nearly 40 years. Families looking for their holiday turkey faced near-impossible odds, battling sky-high prices and picking over a limited supply of smaller birds. But it's not just turkeys in trouble. Broiler chickens raised for meat haven't escaped unscathed. While egg-laying hens bore the initial brunt of the flu, the deadly virus is now breaching commercial chicken farms. Just last fall, over 1.5 million meat chickens were culled in California alone after a single catastrophic outbreak. Farmers already struggling with rising costs for feed thanks to global droughts and war disruptions are now forced to grapple with disease and labor shortages at processing plants. The food supply struggles are everywhere. A reduction in poultry availability has sent prices soaring. Chicken wings, breasts, thighs, and drumsticks surged to double-digit price increases in 2023 as supplies strained to keep up. Fast food restaurants, like those known for crispy chicken sandwiches, were forced to ration inventory regionally, leaving some chains unable to meet demand. And it's a chain reaction. Egg shortages from decimated hen populations are now making it difficult for hatcheries to meet the needs of broiler farms, potentially causing even more disruptions down the line. Experts are raising red flags that this crisis isn't going anywhere soon. Farmers are reluctant to rebuild flocks due to high risks, staggering costs, and ongoing disease fears. What's worse, the spring migration of wild birds could introduce another devastating wave of avian flu, further crippling the industry. By 2025, consumers could see sporadic empty poultry sections at supermarkets and escalating prices. Don't be surprised if stores impose strict limits on turkey purchases during the holidays, or if restaurants quietly swap out chicken dishes for other proteins. Poultry is in free fall, and we're all feeling it on our plates. 3. Sugar and sweeteners. Picture this nightmare scenario. You're reaching for a bag of sugar to bake cookies or make your morning coffee, but the shelves are empty. Hard to imagine? Think again. Sugar may be sweet, but the situation unfolding in global sugar supplies is bitter. What we're experiencing now could lead to a sugar shortage of monumental proportions. The trouble began in India, the world's second-largest sugar producer and a key exporter. Drought and delayed monsoons devastated India's sugar crop in 2023, leaving reservoirs bone dry in critical cane-growing states. Farmers slashed plantings as the weakest rains in over a century hit, creating a shortfall so severe that the government took drastic action. India banned sugar exports entirely for the first time in 7 years, cutting millions of tons of sugar off the world market overnight. The ripple effects were immediate and staggering. Global sugar prices shot up to an 11-year high as countries that relied on Indian sugar, like those in the Middle East and Asia, scrambled to secure supplies. And that was just the beginning. By 2024, India's sugar output plunged even further. Shockingly, analysts predict India may become a net importer by 2025, a reversal that could send global sugar prices into uncharted territory. Of course, India isn't the only nation in trouble. Thailand, another sugar heavyweight, battled its own severe drought, slashing harvests. Simultaneously, Europe's sugar beet farmers faced scorching heat that withered their crops, cutting production even further. Food companies are already feeling the pain, with some manufacturers swapping sugar for cheaper high-fructose corn syrup to keep costs down. Even U.S. stores have seen sugar inventories tighten significantly. The domino effect doesn't stop there. Wholesale costs for granulated sugar surged by 30% in late 2024, sparking regional shortages as shoppers hoarded bags from shelves. Emerging sugar powerhouses like Brazil have tried to fill the gap, but global reserves are at a 10-year low. Add in the looming El Niño phenomenon, which threatens more drought in cane-growing regions, and the future of sugar looks bleak. By May 2025, you could be paying double for soda, candy, and baked goods, or worse, facing outright rationing. The golden days of cheap, abundant sugar are behind us. Stock up now, because the sugary staples you take for granted might soon be off the menu. 4. Chocolate and cocoa products. Bad news for chocolate lovers. We're staring down a cocoa crisis so severe that it might change your sweet tooth forever. Think empty candy shelves, record-breaking prices, and the heartbreaking shrinking of chocolate bars. All eyes are on cocoa, and the situation is grim. West Africa, the producer of 70% of the world's cocoa, has faced 4 devastating years of harsh weather and unpredictable climate patterns. Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, the biggest cocoa-growing regions, have endured extreme heat and erratic rains that have left their cocoa trees struggling to survive. Drought has parched plantations that should have been lush and brimming. Diseases, exacerbated by stressed plants, have swept through cocoa groves with alarming speed. The cocoa deficit reached a 60-year high in 2024, marking the largest supply shortfall in modern history. Struggling farmers are abandoning their groves entirely, with some even turning to illegal gold mining out of sheer desperation. This catastrophic reduction in production has sent cocoa prices skyrocketing, with futures in New York climbing to an all-time peak of $12,931.00 per metric ton by the end of 2024. Major chocolate manufacturers have already started raising prices to cope. Hershey, for example, increased prices by 8% last year and hinted more hikes are likely if prices keep surging. Smaller chocolatiers are feeling the squeeze too, as fine cocoa beans become harder and harder to secure. Europe's chocolate inventories are at decade lows, and producers are warning that demand destruction is coming. This means fewer chocolate treats, recipe reductions, and smaller products for higher costs. And here's the kicker. Even if global demand crashed tomorrow, cocoa supply issues couldn't resolve themselves that quickly. Cocoa trees take years to mature and bear fruit, and that's assuming weather conditions don't throw more curveballs. Ecuador, another cocoa exporter, has also been hit with relentless rains, adding to the global chaos. Shipping is another layer of this mess. Tariffs, port delays, and broken supply chains have further slowed the movement of cocoa to manufacturers. Experts warn the industry is one disaster away from a breaking point. By May 2025, chocolate lovers may face either wildly expensive options or empty shelves altogether. The chocolate Easter bunny might go extinct, and chocolate bars could become a rare and pricey indulgence. 5. Lettuce and leafy greens. Say goodbye to easy salads and fresh wraps, because lettuce is withering under the weight of climate chaos. America's leafy greens are under siege, and what's happening in the fields will leave you stunned. The country's two primary lettuce growing regions, Arizona and California's desert areas, have been battered by freak weather events, leaving shelves emptier and prices skyrocketing. It's a salad lover's worst nightmare come true. At the beginning of 2024, lettuce farmers found themselves in deep trouble. Unprecedented cold snaps and heavy floods tore through Arizona and California at the worst possible time. Yields plummeted. Greenleaf, romaine, and iceberg lettuce crops took massive hits, leaving farmers scrambling to fill orders. By February 2024, iceberg lettuce prices had hit unprecedented highs, and the quality of what did make it to stores was abysmal. Limp, undersized heads became the norm, as even the best lettuce packs were substituted due to industry-wide shortages. This is not the first lettuce catastrophe, though. Just a year prior, California's Salinas Valley, the heartland of U.S. lettuce production, was devastated. A brutal combination of heat waves and a viral outbreak decimated crops, leaving grocery stores with $10.00 heads of lettuce and fast food chains rationing salads. Thousands of acres were wiped out, and consumers were left scrambling for alternatives. Now, in 2025, farmers hoped for a bounce back, but nature had other plans. California saw record-setting rain at the start of the year, turning fields into swamps and delaying crucial plantings. Meanwhile, Arizona, which supplies nearly all the lettuce during winter months, experienced unusually cold and rainy conditions, destroying harvests. Farmers are calling it the new normal, as climate change continues to disrupt traditional growing patterns. The signs are all around us. Prices have climbed steadily, and it's becoming harder to find fresh, high-quality greens at the local supermarket. Analysts are already predicting that lettuce could become a luxury, with consumers turning to frozen or canned vegetables as replacements. It's not just a matter of cost anymore. Entire supply chains are buckling under the strain. If you love your leafy greens, brace yourself. By May 2025, lettuce and other fresh greens might come with a steep price tag, or disappear altogether from many grocery stores. Salads could turn into a rare treat, a victim of the turbulent forces reshaping agriculture in America. Stock up now while you still can, because the days of abundant, affordable lettuce are fading fast. 6. In orange juice and citrus fruits. Your morning OJ is under attack, and it's not just a minor squeeze. Oranges and citrus fruits are in a full-blown crisis that's been decades in the making. Florida, once the king of U.S. citrus, is watching its orange groves wither away, and the numbers are downright terrifying. The USDA forecasts that Florida's orange yield for this year could hit its lowest level since the Great Depression. That's nearly a century-low harvest, and the implications are hitting consumers hard. The root of this disaster? A relentless citrus greening disease that's been choking Florida's orange trees for over a decade. This incurable plague, spread by invasive insects, is killing trees from the inside out, making them produce fewer and fewer oranges until they simply die. Compared to 30 years ago, Florida's citrus output has plummeted by a jaw-dropping 90%. Entire family farms have packed it in, unable to survive the mounting costs of battling both disease and extreme weather. Speaking of weather, Mother Nature hasn't been kind to Florida's groves. Hurricanes in 2022 slammed into citrus-producing regions, tearing fruit off the trees and drowning root systems. Freeze events further damaged blossoms, while farmers who managed to recover were dealt another blow as extreme heat waves shriveled what little hope they had left. The result? Fewer oranges and tighter juice supplies than we've seen in decades. And it's not just an American problem. Brazil, the world's top orange juice exporter, has faced disastrous harvests of its own. Floods, extreme heat, and drought cycles have devastated Brazil's citrus industry, pushing global supplies of orange juice and other citrus products to the brink. OJ futures already hit an all-time high of $3.69 per pound last fall, and the pain in shoppers' wallets is only getting worse. And by May 2025, a gallon of orange juice might feel more like a luxury than a staple. Analysts are warning that juice stockpiles are at critically low levels, and with Florida's groves disappearing and Brazil struggling to make up the gap, prices will skyrocket. Forget about that morning glass at brunch or a refreshing summer drink by the pool. The orange juice drought is real, and it's coming soon to a store near you. 7. Butter and dairy products. If you're a fan of rich, creamy butter on your toast or in your favorite cookie recipe, here's a warning for you. The dairy aisle is shattering under a cascade of crises, and butter is leading the way. What seemed like a minor inconvenience in 2024 is evolving into a full-blown nightmare that could leave your favorite dairy staples missing from the shelves. Butter prices started soaring late last year, with wholesale costs in Europe climbing a shocking 83% in a single year. By the end of 2024, U.S. butter prices hovered around $3.00 a pound, a staggering 15% jump over the previous year. And this isn't just a price problem. Farmers are barely able to produce enough milk to meet demand, and dairy fat needed for butter has become critically scarce. Why is this happening? Start with the farmers. Years of punishing feed costs, slim profit margins, and relentless drought have driven many to thin their herds or exit the business entirely. The U.S. dairy cow population has shrunk, and those remaining are being pushed harder than ever to produce milk. Globally, it's just as bad. Countries like New Zealand, renowned for their dairy exports, saw milk volumes collapse in 2023, even in Europe, the heart of butter production. Unpredictable weather and soaring costs have left inventories depleted. On top of that, dairy processors are turning milk into more profitable cheese products, leaving less for butter production. Heading into last year's holiday season, bakeries were panicking about finding enough butter for cookies and cakes. Retailers began reporting spot shortages, and frustrated shoppers found empty sections where their favorite butter brands once stood. The situation is dire, and it's not getting better. Climate change is amplifying diseases like blue tongue and EHD in dairy herds, cutting into milk outputs even further. Analysts warn that butter prices will likely remain sky-high well into 2025, if not longer. Imagine walking into a store and finding butter rationed or missing altogether just when you need it most. By May 2025, the dairy section could look dramatically different. Butter, milk, and even cheese might feel like splurges as the industry struggles to recover from these massive disruptions. If you're a baker or a dairy lover, it's time to stock up. Butter shortages are looming large, and the forecast for dairy products is looking grim. 8. Eggs. Eggs, once the inexpensive heart of breakfast tables and baking recipes, are turning into a fragile commodity that's balancing on the brink of disaster. The warning signs have been glaringly obvious for years, and they're only getting worse. If you thought the $5.00 a dozen eggs we saw in early 2023 were shocking, buckle up, because the situation is escalating. Eggs may soon become a luxury item rather than the budget-friendly staple we all know. The nightmare began in 2022 with the worst avian flu outbreak the U.S. has ever faced. Highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, ripped through flocks, claiming the lives of over 43 million egg-laying hens in a single brutal wave. Entire farms were decimated overnight. By January 2023, egg prices hit an all-time high of $4.82 per dozen. Worse yet, some stores saw their egg shelves wiped bare completely. Emergency imports helped stabilize things temporarily, but the cracks in the system didn't go away. They just deepened. Fast forward to late 2024, and the virus had returned with a vengeance. This time it hit cage-free operations on the West Coast particularly hard, from California to Oregon, where stricter animal welfare laws resulted in birds living in open conditions more vulnerable to infection. Millions of hens were culled in an urgent attempt to stop the spread, Grocery shoppers in these regions were greeted with horrifyingly empty shelves, especially in stores like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. Price hikes followed instantly. The crisis has laid bare the vulnerabilities in our food system. Each wave of bird flu means millions more hens are culled, which takes months to replace. Farms trying to recover face enormous challenges, from volatile feed costs to the risk of yet another deadly outbreak as spring bird migration spread the virus further. Egg production is supposed to rise to meet growing demand, but we're seeing the opposite. To make matters worse, about 40% of the nation's egg-laying hens are now raised in cage-free conditions, which makes them more susceptible to infections compared to birds in tightly controlled environments. Farmers remain hesitant to rebuild their flocks quickly, fearing further losses. Meanwhile, egg prices surged 5.9% in just 1 month during March 2025. Heightened demand and limited supply are squeezing the industry dry. By May 2025, rationing eggs may not seem far-fetched in some states if the virus continues its devastating march. Shoppers may find shelves empty yet again, with eggs priced like luxury goods. This once simple grocery item has turned into white gold, a fragile treasure you may no longer take for granted. 9. Beef. The sizzling steak on your plate and the juicy burger at your barbecue might soon feel like relics of the past. The beef industry is crumbling, and the ripple effects are hitting faster and harder than most realize. The U.S. cattle herd is shrinking at a shocking rate, and by May 2025, it's very likely we'll be facing dire shortages that could make beef wildly unaffordable or, even worse, unavailable altogether. According to the latest USDA cattle inventory reports, America's beef cattle herd has hit its smallest size in 64 years. That's a population cutback we haven't seen since 1959. What caused this collapse? The answer is a devastating trifecta of drought, sky-high feed costs, and difficult economic conditions for ranchers. It all began in 2021 and 2022, when extreme droughts ravaged states like Texas, Oklahoma, and across the Great Plains. Pastures dried up, hay prices surged, and ranchers were left with impossible choices. Many were forced to cull their herds just to survive. By late 2022, more than 60% of U.S. cattle were living in drought-stricken regions, with water and feed supplies running dangerously low. Ranchers sold off millions of extra cattle to avoid losing them outright, creating a temporary glut of beef on the market. But that oversupply was a mirage. When breeding cows are slaughtered, it has long-term consequences. Calf births have dropped significantly, and fewer young cattle are now being raised. This means the beef supply for 2024 and beyond is tightening fast. Beef production dropped significantly last year and is forecast to plummet even further in 2025, hitting its lowest levels in over a decade. Cattle ranch operators can't simply regrow their herds overnight. Keeping heifers for breeding delays meat production, and with continued drought concerns, many ranchers aren't even trying to rebuild. On top of that, imported beef is in short supply too, with countries like China snatching up available global resources. Meat packers like Tyson Foods are already reporting major losses in their beef processing departments because there's barely enough product to go around. Consumers are noticing, as prices for everything from ground beef to high-end steaks are breaking records. By the summer of 2025, ground beef might become as scarce as filet mignon. Restaurants may cut beef options entirely, while supermarkets focus on cheap cuts or imported alternatives. This isn't just about demand, it's about an industry fighting to survive. The once reliable supply of burgers and steaks is running out, so enjoy it while you can. 10. Bread and flour, wheat products. The foundation of our pantry staples is under threat, and it's shaking the entire food chain. Wheat, the backbone of bread, pasta, and flour products worldwide, faces a golden era of scarcity. Don't take that loaf of bread on your counter for granted, because by 2025, we could be seeing a deepening wheat crisis that makes everything from dinner rolls to sandwich bread harder to find and much more expensive. The trouble begins on a global scale. Ukraine, often called the breadbasket of Europe, has seen its wheat production drastically reduced due to the ongoing war. Since 2022, missile strikes and geopolitical instability have slashed its harvest area. While exports have limped along through alternative routes, production is nowhere near pre-war levels. This isn't just a regional issue. It's undermined a significant chunk of the global wheat supply, sending shockwaves through international markets. Then there's climate change. From record-breaking heat waves in Europe and North America to catastrophic floods in Asia, wheat fields everywhere are struggling. The U.S. Great Plains suffered devastating droughts in 2023, while Canada's wheat-producing regions also faced back-to-back dry seasons. India, another wheat giant, implemented export bans after its 2022 harvest was decimated by an extreme heat wave. With fewer exporters stepping in to fill the gap, global trade has become a nightmare. The result? Wheat prices hit near-record highs repeatedly over the last couple of years. Some countries have begun stockpiling grain and restricting exports entirely. Russia, the world's top wheat exporter, has imposed heavy quotas and fluctuating tariffs. This hoarding behavior ripples outward, leaving less wheat available on the open market. Consumers are already feeling the crunch. Bread prices globally have already shattered records, with flour costs climbing more than 20% in some regions. Specialty flours like semolina for pasta have seen sporadic shortages as big buyers race to secure shrinking supplies. Now, heading into 2025, fears of another global shortfall are growing. If another major harvest fails due to drought or conflict, the cupboard could literally be bare. The UN has sounded the alarm, warning that global food price spikes will likely worsen as the climate continues wreaking havoc on agriculture. Bread, that simplest of staples, could become a luxury item in parts of the world. Even in the U.S., where wheat supplies have historically been stable, higher prices mean fewer options on store shelves. By May 2025, bread and flour shortages may hit harder than any of us expect. The age of plentiful wheat may be over, and with it, the era of cheap bread. Stock up now because this crisis is only starting to rise. Preparation is the key to navigating the challenges ahead. While it's impossible to predict every shortage, being proactive about stocking up on essential items can make a significant difference. Pay attention to market trends, buy non-perishable goods when possible, and consider alternative options to mitigate scarcity. These grocery items may become harder to find, but planning ahead allows you to stay one step ahead of the crisis. As the landscape of global supply changes, resilience and adaptability will be more crucial than ever.